Hello, everyone. I hope we're all doing well this afternoon. I wanted to make this video, and I'm actually going to make a series of videos after this, if all goes well, based off of the feedback that I got on my library tour video that I posted on my channel about a month or so ago. That video got a lot of views for my channel. Anyway, I'm just this small little English teacher YouTube channel, right? So, if anything that gets above 100 views or so, I start seeing dollar signs in my eyes. Just kidding. But people did seem to like that library tour video. And the one thing that I think I could have done better in the video was that I skimmed past a lot of stuff pretty quick because there were a lot of books to cover. And the video is only 30-40 minutes or so. And so I was thinking it would be a cool idea to do shorter bookshelf tours, kind of taking a closer look at some of the books in my collection. And these would be topical videos. And so I want to release a series of videos taking more in-depth looks at some of those books that we breezed over really quickly in the overall library tour. And hopefully this gives you some motivation to check some of them out, do a little bit of studying, reading on topics that maybe you don't know too much about, or if you've been curious about something and you're wondering where to begin, what would be some good books to pick up. My hope is that this video and all these videos will be helpful for you. So let's check them out. So these are my Shakespeare books, most of them anyway. I've got one other on the desk that I want to show you guys in a little bit more detail in a minute. But we have the complete works of William Shakespeare with all the plays and the sonnets and some of the other poems that he wrote. This is a nice Barnes & Noble edition with gold. It's got like the gold edging on the papers. Which is nice. That was the first Shakespeare book that I bought for one of the classes on him that I was taking in college. And so I've gone through that book pretty thoroughly, making notes and annotations and things. I also took a class specifically on the play Henry V, King Henry V, so I have kind of its own edition there. I have other like individual copies of certain plays that I really like in the other room. So it's the same thing as in here, just more notes and a little bit bigger print. This is a book that I just picked up because it was a little, fun. It's got good illustrations and it talks about, what other theatrical companies have done with the plays and what sort of film adaptations have been made of the plays. So it's a good reference. And here I have a couple critical scholarly studies of the plays. The Invention of the Human by Harold Bloom. This is a tough one for me to get through for some reason. I don't know if it's just Harold Bloom's writing style, but that one's a little tricky. I haven't read this one, actually. I've picked this up a while back. It sounds interesting. Shakespeare and the Allegory of Evil. I've read excerpts of it that are in other Shakespeare books. Like I think there's an excerpt from this in the Henry V volume there. So I can't really report on that one too much, but I'm looking forward to getting to it. This one is probably my favorite like literary criticism, scholarly study of the plays, Shakespeare After All by Marjorie Garber. There's an essay on each one of the plays individually, and she gets into pretty good detail about the different imagery that shows up in the plays, the structure of the plays, how each play either foreshadows something that he's going to talk about in a future play, or it calls back to another idea that he's brought up in a play that he wrote before then. And it presents them in chronological order too, which is nice. You can really see the progression of Shakespeare's style and his ideas throughout his career as a playwright if you read them in chronological order. So there's a big difference between say, Titus Andronicus or Richard III, which he wrote relatively early on in his career, and then Othello or King Lear or The Tempest, things that he wrote more towards the end. So this book kind of highlights how he changed as a playwright throughout his career. Will in the World and A Year in the Life of William Shakespeare. These two are interesting because it's studying the plays as well. So you get good commentary on plays like Henry V, Romeo and Juliet, As You Like It, but it's also talking about Shakespeare's life. So it's giving you some background information that you might not otherwise have, kind of painting the scene of what life was like in Elizabethan England. And the year in the life in question here, I think it's like 1599. Yeah, 1599. So that's focused on really just the four or five plays that he wrote in that year, and some things that were going on politically or internationally that he makes reference to in those plays. 1599 apparently was a pretty stressful year if you were living in London. Alias. So this is a book getting into the authorship controversy. I don't know what that word is. Controversy, rather. There's a big debate about whether or not Shakespeare was actually the author of a lot of the plays that are attributed to him. A film came out several years back called Anonymous that is raising the same question. And I tend to disagree with most of the arguments in favor of other writers. People say that maybe it was the Earl of Oxford, or maybe it was Francis Bacon who was contributing some of the works in the Shakespeare corpus. I think it was Shakespeare that wrote it. I think there was sort of almost a snobbish belief that because Shakespeare wasn't highly educated, he didn't go to a big university or a college, that he couldn't have written these plays that are so beloved. So it had to have been someone with more education and more connections, and that person just used the actor William Shakespeare basically as a front man. But it is interesting to study and look into. This is a book about whether or not Henry V was a war criminal. So Shakespeare, in his history plays, he pretty accurately captures what the real historical figures did. And Henry V, when he was in France, fighting in wars, he did commit some actions that were questionable. And so this is about sort of the mock trials and things that people have held to determine whether or not, if Shakespeare was, or if Henry V was still alive today, he could be charged with war crimes. And this is a book just about the history plays as well. The history plays are my favorite. I know the tragedies tend to be more well-known and popular. The history plays, and if you've followed my channel for a while, or if you just scroll back through some old videos, I taught a whole class on the history plays of Shakespeare, and a lot of those lectures are still up. So if you're interested in reading the history plays and you want to use my videos as kind of a guidepost as you're going through them, go check those out. So here are my Shakespeare books, and down here I have a facsimile copy of the first folio. So this was after Shakespeare died in, I want to say 1623. They put this together because he was writing his plays to be performed. He didn't really take much of an interest in seeing them in print, having them available to the general public. And so you could get copies of Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, whatever you wanted, just from booksellers and things. But there wasn't a complete collection of his works that was assembled until after his death. And so they put it together and into this volume, which was called a folio. And real authentic first folios go for a lot of money. They're some of the most expensive books around, if you're lucky enough to have the opportunity to buy one. This is a facsimile, so that's just like a copy, a scanned copy of what a first folio looks like. It's cool, but it didn't cost me, thousands of dollars either to get it. And one of the cool things about this is that you can see the typeset of the Elizabethan English is different. You had the S letter that looked pretty similar to an F, right? And the V looks like a U. And all the plays are like that. So I could turn to the catalog of the plays. We'll see the first one in here. Just look at it briefly. That's The Tempest, which is actually one of his later plays, but it's the first in the series. So you can see Act 1, Scene 1, in Latin, of course. And then you see the dialogue here. And it would be hard to read, like to approach a play for the first time through this text, just because the typesetting is so different and some of the words are spelled differently then than they were now. So, but it is fun if you've read the plays before and if you have a copy that is in more modern language and then you turn back to this to see what it actually said. It's interesting too. Okay, so those are my Shakespeare books. And of course, we'll end the video on the bust of our friend William Shakespeare here. I hope you guys liked this video. If you're interested in reading some Shakespeare, getting to know about him, hopefully it gave you some ideas. And if you did like this video, I'll be making more shortly on other books in my library, other types of books. So if you have something that you particularly want to see, just go ahead and leave it in the comments. Like if you want to see my Charles Dickens books or my Greek and Roman books over here, let me know and I'll make a more detailed video about those as well. Thanks for watching.